pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise.
Her ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life forms and new civilizations.
To boldly go where no one has gone before.
Hi, I'm William Shatner.
And I'm Leonard Nimoy.
And we're here to celebrate the 25th anniversary of a remarkable legacy known as Star Trek.
It's a cultural phenomenon that, frankly, neither one of us could have predicted, and which has earned the unique status of legend.
Now, you may ask yourself, what vital ingredients make up a legend such as Star Trek? Well, to find out, we're here to take you on a very special journey.
As you know, in the world of Star Trek, we can soar across the galaxies and break the time barrier in the blink of an eye.
Through the miracle of digital communications, we're going to warp speed back and forward through time and voyage across the galaxy to examine all the elements that have made this outer space legend what it is today.
With the help of special effects computerization, we'll take you back to the early 60s when the original series was born, zoom ahead for a behind-the-scenes look at the feature film's era and Star Trek: The Next Generation, and blast off to Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama, where LeVar Burton will prepare us for a real voyage into the final frontier.
And we'll also offer exclusive interviews with cast members from both series and talk with some very special guests, including Vice President and Chairman of the National Space Council, Dan Quayle. Plus, we'll cross the universe to show you all the special events taking place during Star Trek's 25th anniversary.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space. But in a very real sense, it will not be one man going to the moon. If we make this judgment affirmatively, it will be an entire nation.
It was quite a monumental speech back in 1961, and influential, I'm sure, to the world of science fiction writing. To understand the mechanics and philosophy behind the legend of Star Trek, let's do a little time traveling to examine the origins of man's unquenchable desire to understand the heavens. Since early man first looked up into the night sky with curiosity, we've dreamt of venturing high into the heavens, beyond the confines of our own planet, towards those little campfires blazing in the vast unknowns of space. While astronomers theorized about the origins of the universe, our imaginations pondered the existence of life on other planets and what type of vehicle could transport us there. The prophetic Jules Verne wrote an amazing tale about 3 men, a dog, and a couple of chickens blasting off from, amazingly enough, the Florida coast.
X minus 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Then a slew of writers and filmmakers painted frightening pictures of alien encounters and outer space conquests that would influence our thinking for generations.
It's the end of everything.
What do you mean?
You got company.
Gee whiz.
Then, in 1957, the launching of the first man-made satellite, the Soviet Sputnik 1, initiated the dawn of the space age.
All right, lift off and the clock has started.
The U.S. rose to the challenge with a continuous series of its own historic voyages, including John Glenn's orbit around the Earth aboard the Friendship 7.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh, that view is tremendous.
Which brings us to 1965, a year that would record another significant milestone in outer space history, the first U.S. walk in space. But it was also a year in which science fiction blended with science fact. A bold new visionary sprang onto the scene in the world of television, a man who would forever alter the way we think about outer space. His name, Gene Roddenberry. Gene spearheaded a brave new idea, a series that would explore the human condition within a space-age format.
Treat everyone on board like a human being except yourself. Well, now you're tired and you...
You bet I'm tired. You bet. I'm tired of being responsible for 203 lives, and I'm tired of deciding which mission is too risky and which isn't, and who's going on the landing party and who doesn't, and who lives. And who dies?
Roddenberry produced a pilot episode entitled The Cage, which starred Jeffrey Hunter and a very young Leonard Nimoy. At first, the executives at NBC Studios rejected the show for being too cerebral.
They felt I had offered them a wagon train to the stars, which I had, because I wanted to sell it. And Westerns were very big at the time. And they felt that I'd double-crossed them. I'd written them this thing about where the mind went in certain ways, and they wanted someone with bare knuckles and a fist fight.
Who was this brash writer-producer who would deceive the network and challenge their perceptions of quality television? What was his background?
Well, in the beginning, Gene Roddenberry was simply a navigator, and a courageous one at that. In World War II, he flew a total of 89 daredevil missions over the South Pacific and was awarded a Distinguished Flying Cross. As a troubleshooter for Pan American Airways, he led a critical rescue operation which saved many lives and earned him the Civil Aeronautics Commendation. But Gene would hang up his wings to pursue something he thought was much more fascinating. He saw a strange glowing box known as television, and he wanted to write for it. Eventually, he began selling scripts to such hit series as Dragnet and Have Gun, Will Travel.
But Gene was eager to break new ground. When he began developing Star Trek, he was hoping he could show viewers an optimistic view of the future. Little did he know how much that optimism rubbed off on the executives at NBC, because for the first time in the history of network television, they commissioned a second Star Trek pilot.
We made him a second show, which had a lot of science fiction elements too, but at least it ended up with Bill Shatner in a bare-knuckle fist fight in which he beats a godlike figure. That started us. We sold Star Trek with it.
There were plenty of cast changes made for that second pilot, and Roddenberry had to put up a fight to keep one character on board the Enterprise intact.
I believe there's some hope for you after all, Mr. Spock.
With Mr. Spock and myself in tow, Roddenberry created an unprecedented mix of culture and race working alongside each other in the future. Thankfully, the network saw something exciting and unique. As a result, NBC decided to go where no man has gone before and premiered their first historic episode on September 8th, 1966.
Set your phaser on 1/4. I'll leave mine on stun.
Let's get him.
Captain Kirk is Captain Hornblower of the sailing ships, who was a great hero, and Hemingway said is the most exciting adventure fiction in the human language.
Captain, we're getting a signal from the spacecraft.
I was pleased that in those days, when you couldn't get even blacks on television, that I not only had a black, but a black woman and a black officer.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us.
No visual contact yet.
Great affection I have for Asians and what they do and the important part they play in the world, and I just could not have a group of Earth people without including that great, one half or more of the Earth continents.
How close will we come to the nearest Klingon outpost if we continue on our present course?
1 parsec, sir. Close enough to smell them.
Chekhov came on the show because I'd read something, and someone had sent me a copy of a Russian newspaper in which they said after our first year, the ugly Americans are at it again. We were the first people in space, but the Americans don't even have a Russian aboard this crew.
Why, that power leak has unbalanced the ship and she's starting to drift. I can't hold her in place that long.
Scots have always been shipbuilders and ship engineers and so on, and that was a bow to tradition.
Your pulse is 242. Your blood pressure is practically non-existent. Assuming you call that green stuff in your veins blood.
The readings are perfectly normal for me, Doctor, thank you. And as for my anatomy being different from yours, I am delighted.
Somehow or another, that when that episode showed, why, the fans picked up on it. And the writers, as a result, went to work, and then they began to build this kind of a relationship. And through the years, it just became more popular, and the fan mail began to demand it.
Star Trek was always in danger of cancellation, especially during the initial months of its first season. Loyal viewers across the country sent letters, phoned their local stations, and eventually convinced the sponsors to keep Star Trek alive for another season.
They're the ones that really gave us this longevity. It's their belief, it's their faith, it's their tenacity, it's their energy reserve, it's their endlessly creative, inventive ways of lobbying that gave Star Trek this life.
Star Trek repeatedly broke new ground with its futuristic portrayal of life in outer space. And the constant effort to make quality television won Roddenberry an Emmy Award and respect among the scientific community. But despite the unheard-of mail campaigns from dedicated fans, the series made its final voyage on June 3rd, 1969, after a total of 79 episodes.
Dr. McCoy, your report.
We were too late, Jim. There's nothing could be done.
Captain Kirk, out.
However, the true test of any great legend is its ability to survive against the odds, thanks to continual fan support and a word called syndication. This would be only the first chapter in the Star Trek legacy.
We witnessed a birth, possibly a next step in our evolution.
I wonder.
I just want to say happy 25th anniversary to Star Trek. This is a show that, this is the only show I was allowed to watch when I was a kid. I was allowed to pick one show a week to watch. My parents let me watch it, and I have seen every one hundreds of times, so I'm very familiar with Live Long and Prosper.
We became incorporated into I think, kind of an extended American family. We became part of the mythos, the American mythos. Star Trek and its characters are, without sounding, I hope, pretentious, became kind of legendary. We appeared in people's bedrooms, in their living rooms, in their kitchens, ad infinitum, ad absurdum.
We all thought it was over. The series was canceled, and that was that. And then we began finding unheard of success in syndication, thanks in great part to faithful fans, and a renewed interest in the space program. While viewers were watching a set of fictitious outer space heroes on their TV sets, real-life heroes like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were taking giant leaps for mankind.
I think that we all owe a great debt to the original Star Trek and the present one, to elevating the public's consciousness about what the future might be.
The legacy of the feature films has a history all its own, dating back to the mid-1970s. Since the wonders of syndication were breathing new life into the original series, rumors were flying about of a second Star Trek series, or possibly a Star Trek TV movie. Prominent writers like Ray Bradbury were submitting ideas. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and Francis Ford Coppola were being considered to direct a motion picture. At one point, Paramount wanted to start its own fourth network with its primary series entitled Star Trek Phase 2. New and old cast members signed on. Sets were constructed, costumes designed. Paramount decided to accept a new challenge. They boldly launched a multi-million-dollar motion picture featuring state-of-the-art special effects.
Engineering.
Chief DeFalco to the bridge, on the door.
Emergency power.
Going to full emergency. But Captain, if we don't break free in 15 seconds, she'll burn up.
10 years after the cancellation of the original series, Gene Roddenberry and the cast were reunited. And I must say, it was a very emotional experience for all of us.
I'll never forget the first day when we were all standing there in wardrobe. And Bob Wise happened to be standing, we were on the bridge. He looked at us and he said, I just really realized, and I didn't until this moment when you're on the set, I'm standing in the midst of living legends.
I mean, we had been told in the course of the last 3 or 4 years that we were going to do Star Trek again, and each time it fell apart. It didn't materialize. So it's hard not to become jaundiced and cynical about this kind of situation. But there we were. We were really doing it. And I had this almost overwhelming desire to embrace everybody.
On December 6, 1979, the crowning touch on this new chapter in our lives was a gala premiere in Washington, D.C. Not only were our faithful fans on hand, but we were invited to a special reception at the Smithsonian Institution's National Air and Space Museum. It is in that museum that one of the original models of the Enterprise now hangs alongside such historic flying machines as the Spirit of St. Louis and the Kitty Hawk.
But because that was so costly a project, they said that would be the only one. And when they said wrap on that, we said, yeah, but it was an extraordinary achievement 10 years after that to have a major motion picture. But then that made tons of money. So we did another one with Nick Meyer, this time as a director, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Were I to invoke logic, logic clearly dictates that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Our second feature film marked the collaboration with producer-writer Harve Bennett and writer-director Nicholas Meyer, who would go on to direct Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Paramount also incorporated the brilliant special effects wizards of George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic. Ricardo Montalban reprised his role as the evil Khan from the original episode entitled Space Seed, and the genesis of the story dealt with the creation of a new world.
I think to be able to be effective on that role, I had to go, not to play the original character, which was many years ago, and he had great control of himself, but a man who had built this passion for vengeance over the death of his wife, whom he loved passionately.
I shall leave you as you left me, marooned for all eternity in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. Buried alive.
Someone who reviewed Star Trek II and III, I think in Time, labeled it exactly what my inner conscience has always called it. He called it space opera. I think Star Trek has always been operatic.
During the period of the feature films, production security became a major issue. Story leaks to the fans were becoming more frequent. Missing props and artwork were being sold on the black market. So during the making of Star Trek III, personnel were given picture ID badges and checked carefully by security guards. Double locks were installed on office doors. Stationery was marked with special code words, and scripts were chemically treated so that copies could be traced back to their source. Sounds like a top secret CIA operation, doesn't it?
What have I done? What you had to do. What you always do. Turn death into a fighting chance to live.
I suppose if one were taking the title of Star Trek III literally, the search for Spock would ultimately lead to the director's chair. For the first time, I was given the opportunity to work with this unique family of actors from behind the camera, and that led to a second directorial assignment on Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home.
Everybody remember where we parked?
Don't tell me. You're from outer space.
No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space.
When Leonard and I did the story together on this one,
we both agreed that having gone through life and death in life, it was time to lighten up a little. So Star Trek IV is a very lighthearted adventure filled with social comment that is hysterically interesting, I think.
One of the most challenging scenes for me as director was creating the illusion of a Klingon ship landing in the San Francisco Bay and transporting a pair of humpback whales to safety. To accomplish this, we need go no further than the back lot of Paramount Studios. What is now a large parking lot became the Pacific Ocean. The whale was actually a large tail fin constructed to glide across the water as large wind machines created a choppy ocean effect. Most of the underwater whale footage was achieved with radio-controlled miniatures designed by Walt Conti. The quality of the whale footage was so convincing that the special effects team was nominated for an Academy Award.
Captain, I do not think you realize the gravity of your situation.
On the contrary, gravity is foremost on my mind.
On Star Trek V, my colleague Bill Shatner was given the directing reins, which allowed him to stretch his artistic abilities and scale new heights of adventure.
Staying true to the notion of the mythos that surrounds Star Trek, the rock climbing sequence seemed to me to be a mythological symbol of man's attempt to achieve great heights. It is, in fact, what the whole story is about. To achieve the reality needed, we caravanned to Yosemite, where I volunteered to hang from a cliff 3,000 feet in the air. It was definitely dangerous, but I must say it was quite exhilarating.
If you're unaccustomed as I am, it's a little scary. The fear of falling is a natural fear, and my worst nightmare, as many people's are, is falling.
Now, with the completion of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, we have come, in a sense, full circle. Returning director Nicholas Meyer has once again molded together all of the vital elements that have made the Star Trek legend endure.
I think there's some wonderful Star Trek moments in it. And our series, if you look at the success of Star Trek, it was built on moments.
How old do you think I am anyway? 137 years, Admiral, according to Starfleet records. Explain how you remember that so exactly. I remember every fact I'm exposed to, sir. I don't see no points on your ears, boy. But you sound like a Vulcan. No, sir. I'm an android. Almost as bad.
You recognize that familiar face? Seems like some folk don't age too well in the 24th century. Just kidding, DeForest, just kidding. What you just saw was a scene from the 2-hour premiere of Star Trek The Next Generation, which debuted in 1987. One of the telltale signs of how a legend endures is how well it translates from one generation to the next. And this series has done a remarkable job of building its own unique identity. In this television series, 78 years have passed since the days of Kirk and Spock, and an all-new crew continue to seek new life and new civilizations aboard a much larger enterprise.
Let's see what's out there.
Needless to say, the idea of creating a brand new series with all new characters didn't happen overnight. It came with plenty of trepidation.
On the first show, on the original Star Trek, I practically lost my family from working so many 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. And I said, you can't pay me enough to do that. But then they said, hey, but suppose we did it in a way in which they call syndication, in which we don't have a network, and we don't have all those people. And Paramount was saying to me, and we guarantee to you that you will be in charge of the show.
The new crew of the Enterprise.
Live long and prosper.
When this first became a possibility, a good friend of mine here in Los Angeles said, this was, I think, just before my final meeting for the role, how does it feel to be auditioning for an American icon? And I think that remark unnerved me more than anything else that had been said about it at the time, because although I'd seen a lot of Star Trek in the 60s and early 70s, I still had no comprehension of how much a part of American culture this series had become.
With Patrick Stewart in command as Captain Jean-Luc Picard, there are a few surprising new wrinkles in this updated version of Star Trek, including a Klingon security officer, a telepathic counselor, a female doctor, and one of the most intriguing and popular characters Roddenberry's ever created, Commander Data, a one-of-a-kind android forever in search of human emotion.
I require advice.
Don't look at me. No, Data. I simply mean that I can't give you any advice here. It's not good to advise people about their first love affairs.
We had a new room we're putting on the ship called a bar lounge, a place where you can go and it's not a duty station and you can relax. And I had several thoughts for this. One of those was the fact that I needed one hell of a bartender hostess. And we were thinking of getting the most beautiful girl in all creation to play the part. And thank God Whoopi called up and said, I am a Star Trek fan. I was a Star Trek fan before I was ever Whoopi Goldberg even. And I was wondering if there's some part I can play on your show.
There's so much that people have learned by the 24th century. You notice that there's no problem between delegating responsibility between men and women. There's no color problems. They're just sort of basic Adam and Eve problems, like how are we going to get home sort of things, and how can we save this bunch of people from dying? There seems to be no hassle. There's no problem with men with no hair, or that, you know, some guy's got a huge forehead. The Klingons have cooled out. I mean, things are going well for the world.
Star Trek The Next Generation has proven to be a success on its own merits. It has earned the respect of critics, won a coveted Peabody Award, and several Emmys. In 1991, Star Trek The Next Generation reached another significant milestone with the completion of their 100th episode. Gene Roddenberry joined the cast for a special ceremony on the bridge of the Enterprise.
I think more than anything else, the show, because Roddenberry has maintained the control of it, has expressed his vision, if you will, of the future, which is very positive. And I think that that is the primary reason for the success of the original 79, and also for what success we've had thus far.
I think it's as limitless as the universe, what you can do with a series. So my congratulations and my gratitude and my affection to all of you.
It's going to hit.
I still wonder why no one ever thought of putting seatbelts on the Enterprise. All kidding aside, scientific realism has always been of major concern to the creators of Star Trek. When Gene Roddenberry was making the original series, he often conferred with scientists at the famous RAND Corporation and NASA.
I see Star Trek as part of the continuing education of Gene Roddenberry. I learn new things every day about science and humanity and history.
As a result, the program's fictional technology often became reality. For instance, the diagnostic sickbay beds depicted in the classic series were studied by the U.S. Armed Forces. The Starfleet phaser weapons were one step removed from the laser beam. Spock used his own version of computer disks, and communicators would resemble today's cellular telephones.
Two to beam up, Scotty. Live long and prosper.
The technical advisors on Star Trek The Next Generation constantly check the latest data compiled by NASA and other science institutions to ensure the technical accuracy of the series.
We do have scientific advisors. We go to NASA, we go to JPL.
Rick Sternbach, for instance, one of our illustrators, is quite a scientist in his own right. He knows exactly how the antimatter-matter generator works to propel the warp drive of the Enterprise.
Matter-antimatter mixture ratio settings at optimum balance. Reaction sequence corresponding to specified norms. Magnetic plasma transfer to warp field generators for programmed specs. Commander, we should be going like a bat out of hell.
When it comes to space travel, the audience has accepted and welcomed certain science fiction concepts. In a few instances, we've shown examples of crew members in simulation training exercises. For example, in the opening scene of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, audiences watched Kirstie Alley as the Vulcan Saavik test her skills in command of the Enterprise during a mock intergalactic battle with the Klingons.
Battle stations, activate shields. Inform the Klingons we are on a rescue mission.
They're jamming all the frequencies, Captain.
Alert. Klingon torpedoes activated. Alert.
Evasive action.
Lights.
Permission to speak candidly, sir.
Granted.
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities.
And why not?
Because there was no way to win.
A no-win situation is a possibility every commander may face. Has that never occurred to you?
No, sir. It is not.
In Star Trek The Next Generation, we watch hopeful cadets test their skills in futuristic SAT exams and simulated Starfleet rescue drills.
That was the test.
Yes.
A man could have died.
Theoretically, yes. You had to make a choice, and you did. There's no right or wrong about it.
However, we've rarely shown crew members in detailed preparation for a lengthy voyage aboard a large starship about to embark into the final frontier. To give you an idea of what that might encompass, we talked to some of America's greatest astronauts.
You couldn't just take somebody up in a ride in space and say, well, now this is what it's going to be like when you get up here. You have to train in the simulator, and most of our training, I would estimate 60 to 80% of it was on dealing with contingencies or emergency conditions.
Unlike some people who work on the ground who maybe work a certain system, we have to understand all of them. And of course there's people on the ground that understand all of it, but so we have to learn a lot of different systems, and I'm sure we're not as expert on, say, the engineering system, the propulsion system as Scotty was on the Enterprise. But we're like the captain. We say, Scotty, fix it, and we call the ground, and they tell us what to do.
I believe the things that we're doing now in space will evolve into the kind of thing that Star Trek's about.
One of my surprises was on a jet flight, and sitting next to me was a fellow I kind of recognized, and it took the flight attendant to introduce us, and said, Mr. Roddenberry, have you met Wally Schirra? Both of us doing double takes. And as the conversation progressed, we discussed different things about his version of space and mine. I finally blurted out, why do you beam these people up and down all the time? I said, I can't figure out a way to land this big spacecraft. I thought that was a gorgeous way of solving a problem.
Now, for an exclusive report on space flight training, we're going to warp speed to Space Camp, a renowned astronaut educational facility in Huntsville, Alabama. LeVar Burton, alias Geordi LaForge of Star Trek The Next Generation, has volunteered to be our special reporter at large.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and behind me is a mock-up of the Space Shuttle Enterprise, the very same one used to train future astronauts. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to blast off in a space shuttle and speed toward the stars? Come on inside and I'll give you a hands-on look at what today's astronauts must accomplish before they leave the launch pad. And this way you'll have a better understanding of what the characters on Star Trek's Enterprise must achieve in order to become a Starfleet crew member. Come on. Star Trek has always envisioned a future where we are able to transport ourselves to distant planets and beyond. And who knows, after training at a place like this, you may be booking a first-class ticket to Mars someday. Maybe even aboard the USS Enterprise.
Roger, Houston. We copy a go for OMS 2 to align with space station.
Space Camp gives a young guy or gal a chance to open up their mind, to use the space program as a testing ground for their skills. We teach leadership, we teach decision-making, self-confidence, and teamwork. And all of those things go into Space Camp.
We're going to take you through several phases of training with myself as the proverbial guinea pig. Now, it's understood that Starfleet personnel have overcome the problem of weightlessness, but here in the 20th century, it still remains a real-life dilemma. To get used to weightlessness and other unique sensations that astronauts experience in space, we're going to show you a few specially designed simulation devices, which, I must admit, looked like a lot of fun. First, the UAT, the Underwater Astronaut Trainer.
Down a little bit. Down a little bit. Roger, right there.
In the microgravity chair, we can simulate what it's actually like to walk on the moon. I wonder if Michael Jackson ever practiced on one of these. If you remember, in the first Star Trek motion picture, Spock had to suit up for a very dangerous mission outside the safe confines of the Enterprise. Since 1965, NASA's astronauts have continually embarked on risky missions outside their spacecrafts. In the MMU, or Manned Maneuvering Unit, we can experience what it's like to actually walk in space. Some other elaborate machines include the maneuvering pod, which allows you to float on a column of air 30 feet high. The centrifuge, where you can experience the same G-forces that astronauts have to endure.
If you can imagine 7.5 million pounds of thrust being generated by all the shuttle's engines, you're accelerating very rapidly. In 45 seconds after you leave the pad, you're already going supersonic. And for 4.5 million pounds of hardware to be pushed supersonic in that period of time, you can guess it's a pretty good ride.
Now, by far, the most intimidating experience has to be the multi-axis, which spins you in 3 different directions. If this doesn't give you the feeling of hurtling through space, nothing will. Just be sure not to lose your lunch. Oh! Whoa! Now, it's important to point out that Geordi, the character I play, as chief engineer of the Enterprise, is constantly having to hit the books to stay current with, well, the latest Starfleet policies and warp theory. And here at Space Camp, kids and adults must learn the principles of rocketry, propulsion, space science, and aerospace engineering. Well, there you have it. A small glimpse of what it takes to be prepared to travel in space. Of course, training for a flight aboard the space shuttle could take years, and Starfleet personnel like Commander LaForge undergo an even more advanced training program. But the thrilling future of space travel depicted in Star Trek actually starts right here. I'm LeVar Burton. Thanks for joining me. And you know, if the people here don't mind, I'm going to hitch another ride on the multi-axis.
I just want to say congratulations to you for being able to touch the child in all of us. Congratulations and all my love.
You guys like Italian?
No.
Yes.
Yeah,
No.
no.
Yes.
No.
Yes. I love Italian. And so do you.
Yes.
Do you know row your boat?
That song did not come up in my research, Captain. It's a song, you green-blooded Vulcan.
In creating a legend such as Star Trek, there is one important ingredient needed to portray the human condition in a way everyone can relate to. That all-important element of humor. As we mentioned earlier, Leonard and I infused a lot of laughs in Star Trek 4 and 5, but mixing humor into dramatic storylines can be traced back to the original series, where the characters developed their own special brand of playful banter.
I see you've noticed the ears. They're actually easy to explain. He caught his head in a mechanical rice picker.
I'm a doctor, not an engineer. What am I, a doctor or a moon shuttle conductor? I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer.
Keep saying that. Are you a doctor, aren't you?
If I push these impulse engines too hard in the condition they're in, they'll blow apart.
Fascinating.
Kiss me.
I've never seen him look so happy.
Shut up!
Too much of anything, Lieutenant. Even love isn't necessarily a good thing.
I can't change the laws of physics.
Fascinating.
He's dead, Jim.
He's dead, Jim. He's dead, Jim. He's dead, Jim.
Looking back at those episodes in the 60s reminds me of how some of that futuristic clothing now seems a bit odd looking. Then again, we were a mirror of the time, so it was only natural to have alien cultures in bell-bottoms, go-go boots, and hippie outfits. Now, if you thought the laughs only came out of the classic series, just check out the new crew of the Enterprise.
Show me what is funny.
All right, you're on.
Guy walks into the doctor's office. The doctor tells him you need an operation. The guy says, I want a second opinion. The doctor says, okay, you're ugly too, but boom.
Sir, I protest. I am not a merry man.
My good fortune is your good fortune.
You are fully functional, aren't you?
Of course, but
How fully?
in every way, of course. I am programmed in multiple techniques.
You jewel, that's exactly what I hoped.
Jean-Luc, shame on you for thinking such a thing.
Data.
There are also plenty of miscues that are captured on film and have lived to this day. Here are a series of rare outtakes compiled over the years.
Enterprise calling Starbase 6. Come in, Starbase 6. Starbase 6, here. Hi, y'all, sugar.
Let them pass.
Doors. What's going on here?
Logan.
Save us, please.
Stand back.
I don't know about you, but this is not the way that you run. I want to know. Are you challenging me to a duel? Yes, if you have the courage.
Jim, I'm fine, boss.
Are you all right?
Very good.
And Captain, you're in good hands with Triple.
Small sperm whale.
Pulling back.
Klingon egg. An unknown flower.
No, it's that England right here.
Chicken a la king. I haven't consumed much.
One could also conceivably measure a show's success by how often it is satirized. Several magazines and television shows have poked fun at the series throughout the years, and here are a few to share with you.
Prepare for evasive action. Helm hard to port. Hard to starboard. Hard to port.
Frankly, Captain, I'm exhausted.
Me too. Stabilize, Mr. Sulu.
Look, Captain, it's no use. We can't shake them.
And we'll give them a fight they won't forget.
Jim,
Jim, spit it out, man. Come on, Bones.
Jim, the aliens, Jim. They boarded the ship. They're coming this way.
But how, Bones? How? Did they beam on board? Did they suddenly materialize? How did they get here?
They just stepped out from behind the curtains.
Describe them, Doctor.
Well, there are two of them, humanoid in appearance. They're bipeds, and they have sort of drab clothing, except that around the neck of the leader is a brightly colored piece of cloth.
Is there anything else odd about their clothing?
I'm a doctor, not a tailor, damn it. I don't know.
Captain's log, Stardate 14. We're being pulled towards a hostile planet. I'm hoping that Scotty will be able to activate the backup control system. God, I feel so vulnerable.
Captain, I'm picking up some strange signals. Something about intergalactic oppressors, sir.
Captain, intruders are approaching the bridge, sir.
are you?
I am the Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Interesting specimens. Spock, where are we?
It appears, Captain, that we are on an alien planet inhabited by strange beings with long hair and very short skirts.
Who are you? What do you want from us?
Highly illogical question, Captain. These are alien beings. They think and act in ways you cannot hope to understand.
Well, what can we do? There must be some way of fighting back. Bones, Scotty.
I'm afraid we have no choice but to submit to their every whim. You're their captives. They control us completely.
No, this can't be. We're human beings. Can't you understand that? We're men. We're
The parodies of the series seen over the years are just a small part of the enormous impact Star Trek has had upon our culture. The staid Oxford Dictionary has added the word Trekkie to its hallowed pages. I guess we'll have to have them updated to Trekker, a more preferred term used today. Since the 1960s, fans have been responsible for keeping Star Trek alive, and through the years, their numbers have grown considerably.
First convention Gene Roddenberry and his wife went to in New York City, they expected 300 people and got about 3,500. The next convention was also held in New York City, 73, I think it was, and they had something like 8,000 people there, right? Now, eventually, that number went up to 32,000.
Over 250,000 fans attend conventions annually, and fan clubs can be found as far away as Japan, Australia, and Europe.
Leben Sie lange und in Wohlstand.
In 1991, the biggest number of fans ever gathered from around the world to honor the 25th anniversary at a 3-day extravaganza held in Los Angeles. Vendors sold hundreds of Star Trek memorabilia items, guest speakers held seminars and signed autographs, and hundreds of fans lined up to see a reunion of the original cast on stage at the Shrine Auditorium.
Well, I don't know. It looks like there are about 10,000 people out there, and they've come from all over. I know they're here from Germany and England and what have you, and I'm very flattered that we're appreciated that much.
It's such an honor and it's a pleasure to be here, and I've never seen such an audience as this. I was practically in tears out there. They are so kind, they're so loving, and as I think I said out there, for sure, they love us.
We're amazed that there's so many people here that feel the same way we do about Star Trek.
Yes. I cannot believe it. We thought we were going to be the only two.
We
and her
did.
husband was telling her, you are crazy. You're going to be the only person down there.
But obviously we're not.
To get a small glimpse of the effect Star Trek has had on many of its viewers, let's take a look at a Star Trek convention in action.
Please welcome the one and only Mr. George Takei.
I think anything that has Star Trek on it is going to draw me to it like a magnet.
AMT's been making Star Trek model kits since 1966. As a matter of fact, AMT made the actual Star Trek model that was used by the film company that is in the Smithsonian. And there has been very few years when the sales have not been doing very well for us. It's been the most successful model kit license in history.
Live long and prosper, and hang loose from Hawaii.
This came about because the designers of the jewelry and the fashion accessories wanted to attract attention with electronics and also have something the public would like to wear and have fun with. And the Star Trek creators saw the jewelry and wanted to have it on some of their characters to attract attention. And it's worn by Worf, the television show.
I've been a fan since 1966, right in the very beginning, first episode. It's been a great 25 years.
About in 1983, I got a contract. I signed a contract with the studio, and we've been under license ever since to do the official Star Trek fan club. And from 15 members in 1979, we've built the organization to 35,000 members around the world. And we expect incredible numbers during this 25th anniversary year to sign up in the club and beam on board as well.
Statistics indicate that 53% of the American public consider themselves Star Trek fans, and you'd be surprised where they come from.
My name is Jim Thorne. I'm an astronautical engineer in the Air Force. I work with NASA on international space experiments. I'm a fan of Star Trek because I see it as a positive future that we can look forward to and hopefully achieve in reality.
Far too many people believed, and many still believe, that there are a bunch of teenagers who wear odd clothing and give odd signs and things, but they're not. Trekkers include businessmen, bank presidents, stockbrokers, college professors, and a large number of astronauts.
Well, it's kind of interesting. As I watch my daughter sitting there watching Star Trek The Next Generation, I kind of can take myself back several years ago when I was watching the initial Star Trek program, and it kind of says to me that she is looking at the same types of visions, hoping to do the same types of things that I find interesting and fascinating, and the fact that she is also working here at NASA now as a co-op student excites me that maybe she'll be able to follow on my footsteps someday.
Visiting the bridge of the USS Enterprise carries a legendary mystique all its own. Many distinguished guests have visited the set at Paramount Studios over the years, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Colin Powell, and former President Ronald Reagan. In 1988, Universal Studios theme park premiered a thrilling new attraction, the Star Trek Adventure, seen annually by over 5 million visitors. Participants are allowed to dress up like their favorite characters, act out an action-packed scene on videotape, and beam away before your very eyes. Gene Roddenberry and several cast members were on hand for his gala opening.
We get a lot of fan mail, both of us do, and constant letters are coming in all the time of people that would love to be a part of this show. Can't tell you how many letters state that. And here is the perfect opportunity for them to really be in a Star Trek and have their own little film, the whole bit. I think it's a very exciting idea.
However, the most significant indication of Star Trek's impact on the world occurred in 1976. Over 400,000 letters were sent to Washington, D.C., demanding that NASA name the first of its experimental space shuttles after the futuristic spaceship in the popular television series.
Well, the Enterprise was the first of the space shuttles. Star Trek was very popular in those days, and the name Enterprise was given to the shuttle. And I was lucky enough to be on the crew one of two crews that flew it from on top of the 747. There was another connection to the Enterprise in my personal life that I enjoyed for that mission, and that was the fact that I had served aboard the USS Enterprise in my first squadron.
Admiral, we have found the nuclear vessel.
Well done, Team 2.
And Admiral, it is the Enterprise.
Thank you for 25 years of giving us a great fantasy of a world and worlds that may or may not exist. Although as 2000 approaches, something tells me that other worlds are going to make themselves known, and what you have talked about for so many years will no longer be fantasy but reality, and then we can all say congratulations on your foresight. Again, thank you, and for now I just want to say Q2 signing off.
We once were as you are. Spears, arrows. There came a time when our weapons grew faster than our wisdom, and we almost destroyed ourselves.
Who was that young guy? In the world of television and motion pictures, Star Trek has always had the unique ability of including important social issues within its space-age format, especially during the turbulent 60s. Roddenberry's corps of writers had plenty of drama to address. America was in the grips of the Vietnam War. Several cities were marred by violent demonstrations. And the civil rights movement was at its peak.
I met him in 66, I believe, or early 67, and I had said to him I was leaving the show after he had said that the show was in his home, their home, every week, and how important I was to his family, and made me very proud. He said, Think about this, Michelle. You have changed the face of television forever. They can never undo what they've done. The door is open.
Other TV shows that were popular at the time, westerns like Bonanza or situation comedies, offered a temporary escape from the drama occurring outside their windows. Star Trek not only dealt with some of these issues head-on, but presented a message of hope for the future of mankind.
One day soon, man is going to be able to harness incredible energies that could ultimately hurl us to other worlds in some sort of spaceship. And the men that reach out into space will be able to find ways to feed the hungry millions of the world and to cure their diseases. And those are the days worth living for.
They were stories written by science fiction writers for that kind of an audience. The characters were dimensional. The relationships were complex. There were twists. The plots were, well constructed, and ultimately they were very entertaining. It wasn't the same story over and over again each week, as you do see with a lot of science fiction programming, I think.
The original Star Trek series also presented a future where all races and cultures work together, side by side. And that philosophy remains in the current series.
This is one of the few shows that take place in the future that I saw as a kid where there were any black people. Lieutenant Uhura was there. That gave me a lot of hope. And Asian people and all kinds of folks. There was no problem with Russians. It's very important that the future be hopeful, and that's what this is.
In the 1990s, Roddenberry and a staff of writers continued to probe both human and political conflicts in a dramatic format, including such topics as drug addiction and terrorism.
You are killing innocent people.
This is a war for independence, and I am no different than your own George Washington.
Washington was a military general, not a terrorist.
This show, Star Trek, The Next Generation, is actually a wonderful show for role models for children. And I'm grateful that exists for them, and that I can say hi to them or shake their hands and whatever, because I think children today need role models very much, need hopeful, positive role models.
Are you prepared to condemn him and all who come after him to servitude and slavery? Your Honor, Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
In Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, the main thrust of the story centered around saving an endangered species. I decided to choose the biggest one around, the humpback whale. I got the idea by watching the heroic efforts of members of Greenpeace who often risked life and limb to protect these large mammals from whaling ships. The social issues of the times and historical conflicts often play an integral part of Star Trek. One could argue that these analogies help bring the world of the 23rd century down to earth.
I don't think you can do better than Shakespeare in terms of great thoughts and great themes. And as it happens, Nick Meyer, who directed 2, wrote 4, and is writing and directing 6, is a great Shakespeare scholar and fan. And I think one of the things he's done, I think he started in Star Trek II when he put a real book and gold bifocals in the hands of Bill Shatner, in the hands of Kirk, was to remind people that literature will not be lost simply because information will all be processed electronically in the future.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Message, Spock?
None that I'm conscious of. Except, of course, happy birthday. Surely the best of times.
I think the success of series like this is based on that wonderful large body of lore that exists that you can delve into.
I am Apollo.
And it was Dr. McCoy with a fine sense of historical irony who decided on a name for our captured Klingon vessel.
All I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by.
Melville, John Masefield.
Are you sure about that? I am well versed in the classics, Doctor.
Professor Moriarty, I presume. Welcome, my dear Holmes. Methinks I could not die any place so contented as in the king's company, his cause being just and his quarrel honorable.
Splendid. Data splendid. All of this seems perfectly natural to me. Sitting in this chair, which is the command chair and the battle bridge of the USS Enterprise, is not actually unlike sitting in a throne or a cabinet chair. And a lot of the decision-making that goes on is very, very similar. And in that sense, the kind of work that I've done is being very much continued by this. Equally, the mythic nature of Star Trek as well is all very much a part of work that I've done before.
Perhaps maybe a little Hamlet?
Oh, no, I know Hamlet. And what he might say with irony, I say with conviction. What a piece of work is man. How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form, in moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god.
Traditionally, one of the essential keys to the success of Star Trek has been its writing, and I'm happy to announce that we've upheld that tradition of great storytelling with the completion of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
Being one of the very, very last people ever to be associated with Star Trek, I can hardly take credit for it, but Gene Roddenberry created it 25 years ago. And clearly he has created something that stands with Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes and Tolkien's trilogy and a number of other great literary sagas, which range from science fiction to Victorian to fantasy to any number of genres.
Later in this program, we'll see how Denny, Nicholas Meyer, and myself developed the story of Star Trek VI in a special behind-the-scenes segment on the making of this current motion picture.
Here's to another 25 years, guys. Call me. I'll be at the home.
In Star Trek's 25-year history, the legend has brought with it volumes and volumes of information to define the world around which its characters interact. There are hundreds of pages written about starship designs, futuristic technology, new and existing galaxies, even an encyclopedia of aliens which the crew have encountered, from Andorians to Vulcans. A recently published book is entirely devoted to the Klingon language. For instance, if the character of Spock wanted to bid a fond farewell in Klingon, he'd say, "Yin tak edge, ye chip tak," or "Live long and prosper." To find out more about this interesting language, let's go to Washington, D.C. to meet a gifted linguist who recently collaborated on the making of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
As soon as I walked in the door, Nick Meyer came over to me and says, "Oh, good, I'm glad you're here. I need you to make up a line for me in Klingon." I said, "What's that?" He said, "To be or not to be." I said, "You're joking, right?" He said, No, I'm serious." And I said, "Well, all right." And it's interesting because when I made up the language, just to be curmudgeonly, I decided there's not going to be any verb to be in Klingon. And that worked out just fine until that morning when all of a sudden I have to make up to be or not to be.
You will not experience Shakespeare until you've read him in the original Klingon.
To be or not to be? That is the question which preoccupies our people, Captain.
There's no question that science fiction frequently depends on otherworldly encounters for its storylines, and Star Trek is no exception. The character of Spock is proof enough that great care has been taken in developing alien beings. During the first season of the original series, Spock went through many changes and many pairs of ears before we got him right. And with each new year of this legacy comes the potential for more characters. In Star Trek VI, it seems we get to see every species of the galaxy and then some. We thought it might be interesting to see a brief glimpse of some of the folks we've met over the years in our quest to seek out new life forms and new civilizations.
Where are the triples?
Getting hungry?
Don't give me that Klingon nonsense.
I've always played cops and nice guys and lawyers and doctors and boyfriends, but nice people, you know, helpful, you know, and yes, sir, I'll get on that right away, and, you know, and this guy is a total departure from anything I've ever done.
Today, I am a warrior. I must show you my heart. I travel the river of blood.
Playing a Klingon on Star Trek The Next Generation was one thing. Getting the makeup was entirely another. It was a remarkable experience because it took me, I guess, about 2.5 hours to get the stuff on. And then my only line was like, I took a pain stick and stabbed Worf as he went through the gauntlet of all of us Klingons.
I suppose we could travel back in time.
Will you please leave my ship?
Q.
When I thought of Q the first time, I thought of, actually the first thing that came to mind was a quote that was said about Byron. And that was that he was mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
You can feel it. They're here.
Really, nobody can play lizards like us. So.
Don't get us wrong. Nobody can stoop and run in Lizard Fest.
We actually played wuss lizards, running constantly, all the time.
Anytime we see somebody, we run.
Geordi, stop!
People have often asked if playing the character of Spock has been a problem for me throughout the years. What I've come to realize is that when I'm recognized on the street, people are not necessarily acknowledging Leonard Nimoy the actor, but perhaps a character they've grown to admire for his logical ideas about the universe. If that's the case, it's been a privilege.
We were once a people like yourselves, wildly emotional, often committed to irrationally opposing points of view. Only the discipline of logic saved my planet from extinction.
And now is as good a time as any to show you what's been happening throughout the year during this celebration. Since early January, the curators at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry have been preparing an interactive Star Trek exhibit, which will make a 5-year voyage to museums across the country to teach scientific principles.
We have a special niche. Our interest is in taking education in interactive exhibitries and combining it with entertainment. So we're a little bit like Disneyland and a little bit like the school classroom. When we deal with Star Trek, we felt that it was important for people to understand what it would really be like if you were a Starfleet commander. When this exhibit opens, it will then travel around the country and eventually come back to Portland, and we expect to be known as Trekking Mecca.
To commemorate the 25th anniversary, the cast members from both the original series and The Next Generation joined together for the first time to unveil the Gene Roddenberry building at Paramount Studios.
And Gene Roddenberry's vision is one that's endured for 25 years, longer than the government's vision for it endured. You know, it's pretty amazing when you think about it.
He has inspired people high and low.
I think this is the first time and quite possibly the only time you're going to have both casts assemble like this with Gene and our respective producers, which is kind of a memorable occasion to be involved in.
The weekend of September 8th, 1991 marked the actual anniversary of Star Trek's first air date. Fans gathered for a marathon of the feature film series. I'm proud to announce that my character of Spock is helping the United States Post Office sponsor a series of space-age stamps with the message, "Journey to a New Frontier. Collect stamps."
We are always seeking to promote stamp collecting, and of course there's a lot that's educational about stamps. I mean, these stamps are going to educate people about the 9 planets, and who more logical than Leonard Nimoy.
In addition, Washington, D.C. is the site of a unique Star Trek exhibit at the Smithsonian Institution's National Air and Space Museum.
Star Trek has really become an important cultural artifact in our society, and we wanted to put together an exhibit to examine the historical, cultural, and social implications of Star Trek. This is the original Klingon disruptor And you can see that unlike the Federation phasers, the Disruptors is much more of a Buck Rogers ray gun. This is a small model of the Enterprise encased in a block of lucite and was used in the episode Cat's Paw.
An impenetrable force field around your ship, Captain. It will not hinder orbit, but your people are prisoners within it.
The Star Trek universe is full of people to meet and things to do, adventure and excitement. Whereas space, as a reality, is very dark and cold and unbelievably lonely. And I think maybe one of the reasons that we stopped at the moon and didn't go any further is that there weren't any Klingons there.
First of all, it's an honor for us to be involved in your 25th anniversary there, Star Trek. And we would like to remember the 25th anniversary by doing for you a couple of, well, incredible impersonations that we're extremely proud of.
Classic characters. We're talking about William Shatner's Captain Kirk and DeForest Kelley as Bones.
Get ready. First you'll hear Captain Kirk, then Bones.
You might want to close your eyes here and imagine.
They will envision before you.
Bones.
Jim.
Thank you.
Hanson. Engage.
Pretty exciting stuff, isn't it? It's great. To put together one episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation requires an enormous amount of manpower. In the original series, we didn't have the advanced technology that exists today, but we still managed to deliver Emmy Award-winning effects. Today, the making of an episode is an amazing process, and we'd like to share it with you, from script to screen.
I've been asked the question, you've after doing all of those episodes, are there new things you can do? My God, yes. The basis of our series is the galaxy, and there's quite a few stories out there.
Executive producer Rick Berman and several other staff members meticulously comb through the pages and make revisions while the special effects crew, costumers, scenic designers, and other key personnel create magic out of the printed word.
What we do is we take all the members of the writing staff and we go into a room and we talk it out, and we have a board that actually we write on the wall, and we watch the story beat by beat develop.
Well, I get about 2 weeks' notice on a script. I get about 10 working days to do the thinking, do the drawing, get the sets constructed and ready to shoot.
Well, normally we have 3 shows in progress. One that's shooting on stage, one that's in post-production as it is now, and one that's in preparation.
In order to achieve the unique look of Roddenberry's 24th century, it takes the efforts of a large production team to come up with new and exciting state-of-the-art effects on a weekly basis.
We found ourselves in a situation where we realized that a bulk of our audience was relatively spoiled. They had had, since the old Star Trek series, they had had 20 years of some incredible visual effects that they had all gotten used to, whether it be the Star Trek movies or the Star Wars films or any of the work of Mr. Spielberg or Lucas. People had grown accustomed to a very, very high level of visual effects.
In my department, one of the things is you want to show that the technology is very considerably advanced beyond what we have today. At the same time, you have to create it using present-day technology. Whenever you see a close-up of a control panel, I usually generate it on my handy-dandy Macintosh computer. In this case, this particular piece is from an upcoming episode where we're going to be scanning an area of space and we're going to see this area of subspace distortion.
Begin long-range scans of the Romulan border.
No uncloaked ships within sensor range. A few subspace anomalies, but nothing firm.
Those anomalies could be cloaked ships.
Any given shot that would have the Enterprise, we've had to shoot the Enterprise doing that same motion about 7 times. One exposure is required for the hull. The hull exposure we'd call the beauty pass. Another exposure is required for the windows. Then to get the warp lights or the impulse lights, we shoot those with diffusion filters so that they glow. And then we have to shoot a matte pass, which gives us a perfect silhouette of the ship that allows us to punch a hole in the background of the scenes.
color variations and rhythms and complex harmonies.
What you see on Geordie now is a reproduction of a plastic barrette. A barrette that generally fits over a woman's head like this. Michael Kuda came in with that one day, brought it, said my girlfriend was putting this in her hair the other day. I thought, wow, wouldn't that look good over Geordie's eyes? And we went out and bought some, and we remanufactured one of our basic ideas using that as the basis.
This is a new prop for our 5th season. It's a medical case for Dr. Crusher. It's designed for her to sling over her shoulder very conveniently. When she needs to, she can pull out her tricorder and take readings of her patients.
A shot like this could represent hundreds of man-hours to bring into existence. It's ambitious for television, and I think it pays off. Although the story is what the shows are really all about.
On an episode named Tin Man, we had an alien space creature that was a very organic sort of thing. And so when we had to send someone inside of this thing, here we found ourselves inside a very organic living creature, and we had to have sounds that would help us believe that. We ended up taking a stethoscope and feeding somebody a bunch of pizza and recording those sounds of that pizza being digested, and it turned out terrific.
Some television shows are shot in a week's time, but not Star Trek, with a budget of over $1 million per episode. The process from start date to final editing can take a month or longer to complete.
I think sometimes you people who started in Hollywood and spent a lot of time here forget how really incredible this town is. We have people here that can do anything. And we have other people who try. But this is a rich reservoir of talent. And a person who is willing to use it and willing to let other people make decisions and so on is bound to be successful.
Well, I hope now the audience appreciates just a little more the amount of work that is involved with producing a series like Star Trek. Now, let's jump from the small screen to the big screen.
Now, as promised, we'd like to discuss the making of our motion picture Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. One of Hollywood's most respected talents, Christopher Plummer, makes a special guest appearance along with Kim Cattrall, Rosanna DeSoto, David Warner, and Mark Leonard as Spock's father, Sarek. Once again, our story parallels current events in our own lifetime. The title, The Undiscovered Country, is based on a line from Shakespeare's Hamlet, symbolizing the unknown future that two vastly different cultures must ultimately face. In this case, the Federation and the Klingons.
The Klingon Empire has 50 years of life left to it.
To offer Klingons a safe haven within Federation space is suicide.
They're animals.
Jim, they are dying.
You, Captain Kirk, are to be our first olive branch.
Me? We have volunteered to meet the ship which is bringing Chancellor Gorkin here and escort him safely through Federation space.
We volunteered? This is the Starship Enterprise. We've been ordered to escort you to your meeting on Earth.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
I have so wanted to meet you, Captain. One warrior to another.
Right.
The undiscovered country refers to the future. And as you know, the world in which we are living is turning upside down even as we speak.
The undiscovered country. The future.
If only these two enormous rivals would not blow everything up with their dreadful weapons of destruction. And then somebody says, okay.
Take two. Parker.
That's the undiscovered country.
Would you be willing to give up Starfleet?
I believe the captain feels that Starfleet's mission has always been one of peace.
So it really has this kind of feeling of the two major powers of the universe. And there's that nice corollary on Earth with the two major powers of Earth, the United States and the USSR.
You hypocritically presume that your democratic system gives you the moral prerogative to force other cultures to conform to your politics. That's not true. No? No.
It's going to be a whodunit, this story. And I think the audience will be guessing right until the end as to who the culprits are.
We come in peace, and you blatantly defy that.
We haven't fired. According to our databanks we have. I shall blow you out of the stars.
They're coming about.
Battle stations.
Incoming.
Signal our surrender.
Captain?
We surrender.
Once again, we've teamed up with the talented crew at George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic to create some thrilling new special effects.
One story point in this film is that the Enterprise, poor old Enterprise, takes a pummeling, and it's getting hit repeatedly from another ship with photon torpedoes banging against it while its shields are up. So we have to leave scars in it, so it gets hit time after time.
They're very expensive models. So each one is probably, we're talking hundreds of $1,000s for each of those models. Well, the Enterprise is probably $800,000.
This is an interesting design of the ship. Before this, spaceship was either a rocket or a flying saucer. The warp engines here are away from the hull because what they do basically is warp space, almost like a surfboard riding on a wave. And they have to be away from the ship because when they do that, they create this horrible electric field that if you were standing next to, you'd be incinerated. So that's the reasoning as to why they're away from the ship. And they create this space that the ship is able to move faster than light.
The cast and crew had to rise to the challenge of a tough shooting schedule in order to have a release ready for our 25th anniversary. From wardrobe to makeup, every department put in plenty of man-hours with the understanding that they were creating something very special.
The scope of this is triple anything that they've ever done before. And also in Hollywood, this is probably one of the largest prosthetic shows that have come down the wire since Planet of the Apes. And anything to compare with it, Back to the Future or Dick Tracy, which still don't even hold a candle to this.
Massive amounts of Klingons and some aliens sprinkled in here and there.
Several extraordinary locations were used in Star Trek VI, including the rough terrain of Alaska. Freezing temperatures and slippery ice were only part of the challenge of shooting there.
Even the stunt doubles that I took to Alaska on the second unit, they had 3.5 hours of makeup. They'd be up at, 2, 3 in the morning, and then we'd fly 40 minutes by helicopter to this glacier, and it would be below freezing in the morning. By noon, they were sweating, and they had this heavy, we were so concerned that they were going to freeze to death. Now I had a problem that they were going to perspire and catch pneumonia. And then, of course, the cold would set in at the end. So everybody, from stuntman to stars, ran into a lot of personal sacrifice to make this movie.
What rock not push now?
The Universal Translator was confiscated.
Ring not the scan.
I'm sorry?
That's the crest crew. Unto Premorescue, on deck.
He's definitely on about something, Jim.
What rotten push knock!
If this is your spot, we'll move on.
What rotten push knock!
Portions of this surreal ice planet were shot on a soundstage, where Kirk and McCoy battle against the elements and encounter voluptuous aliens.
I play an alien, a female alien. Her name is Martia. She's a cameloid. That means she can change. She's like a chameleon. She changes physique from time to time. She's a good girl, but she is a villain. We're outside the shield. Now it's your turn, Captain.
If you say so.
Left to the belt. Right chop to the neck.
Chop to the neck.
2 jabs and a right.
As we said earlier, the Klingon Empire figures prominently in this storyline. And for actor Michael Dorn, who plays Lieutenant Worf on the current TV series, it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to blend together 2 generations.
My character is
the grandfather of the character I play on the Next Generation television show. He is a defense attorney, and he is pressed into service to defend Kirk and Bones in the Klingon court.
Objection! Captain Kirk has not been identified as the assassin.
Sustained.
I offer into the record this excerpt from the captain's personal log.
I've never trusted Klingons. And I never will. I've never been able to forgive them for the death of my boy.
We would consider an attempt to rescue them an act of war.
There will never be a better time.
This is Captain Sulu, USS Excelsior. We stand ready to assist you.
This is fun. You do prefer it this way, as it was meant to be. Warrior to warrior.
You cannot take much more of this. Cry havoc! Shields! And let's slip the dogs of war. Fire!
Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
Congratulations, Gene, on 25 years of Star Trek, and thank you to everyone who has watched and supported us and supported them.
25 years ago, a unique television show became another symbol for what astronaut Buzz Aldrin called the insatiable curiosity of all mankind to explore the unknown. By portraying a positive vision of the future, Star Trek has captured the imagination of millions and strengthened their support for space travel and exploration. For that, everyone associated with Star Trek deserves congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Who knows what tomorrow holds for us in this vast realm of galaxies and planets above us? Well, one thing that might help us get a better understanding of the future is to check the developments of NASA and other scientists around the world. Currently, we wait upon the launch of the Endeavour and other space shuttle missions to gain further scientific information. In addition, plans are underway to construct a massive space station called Freedom.
I would hope in the future that we develop a way that's more cost-effective, that's more like Star Trek, that uses the same spacecraft over and over again. And the only way we can do that is to refurbish them somewhere, and bringing them back down to the surface of the Earth is not always the best way. So that means we need to refurbish them in space, and that means we need a spaceport.
And paralleling Star Trek's goal of seeking new life and new civilization, scientists in London have made an amazing discovery, a brand new planet in the solar system which could contain life.
You know, we think about our solar system and the planets in it, and what a lot of people don't realize is that Star Trek kind of portrayed is there's lots of other solar systems out there. And although we believe that we're probably the only life in this solar system, who's to say that some other solar system, just like Star Trek portrayed, might have, you know, human-type inhabitants.
We hope that in the last 2 hours, you've enjoyed watching us trace the history of Star Trek in order to find out what makes it such an extraordinary legend. Both Leonard and I have argued about what elements have made it last so long, but there are no easy answers.
We've mentioned that part of the success lies in the ideas, both hidden and obvious, inherent in the stories. Kids can watch the show for the action, the adventure, the fun. Then you can revisit years later and discern something you weren't aware of. Second of all, it's thoughtful science fiction. It's not just people shooting each other, and the one who knocks out the other one is the winner.
There's also a special chemistry between this particular family of actors and characters. Audiences seem to respond favorably to that. In fact, they enjoy watching these people grow older and adjusting to events from a more mature perspective.
One thing is for certain. It has generated fans from around the world for its portrayal of a culture we'd like to live in.
Star Trek appeals to a higher denominator. It appeals to the imagination, to the mind. It is allegory that deals with issues disguised. And the loyalty to Star Trek, I think, is because people say, I'm a Star Trek fan, and that marks me as something special.
I think ultimately for me, what fascinates and compels me are those characters, are those actors, if you like. That there is what I call the extraterrestrial quality known as charm, which these people possess in abundance.
Star Trek has kept its promise of going where none have gone before. One person who can sum up the philosophy of this extraordinary 25-year legend is its creator, Gene Roddenberry.
Because it speaks to some basic human needs, that there is a tomorrow. It's not all going to be over with a big flash and a bomb. That the human race is improving, that we have things to be proud of as humans. No, astronauts, ancient astronauts did not build the pyramids. Human beings built them because they're clever and they work hard. And Star Trek is about those things.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in the future.
May you all live long and prosper.
The final frontier. These are the continuing voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Her ongoing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life forms and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Engage.
May the wind be on our backs.
Good night, folks.
Good night, Jim.
Good night, Spock.
Good night, Doctor.
Good night, Spock.
Good night, Jim.
If you want more information about Space Camp, dial 1-800-63-SPACE.